All right, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to go over what GRC is all about because I do have people reaching out to me to ask questions like, what is GRC? How can I enter into the field of GRC, right? But before I do that, I would just like to do a quick introduction or tutorial or video on why every organization requires or needs GRC. And you can see that GRC stands for governance, risk, and compliance. So today's session will be why every organization, why they need GRC, and when to implement GRC, okay? So the agenda for today will be one, what is governance, risk, and compliance? We're going to talk about the pillars of GRC, why GRC is important, the consequences of not having a GRC framework. We will also go over the benefits of implementing GRC and also when to implement it and how GRC can improve business resilience. Okay, then we'll also kind of go over some questions. Okay, so what is GRC? All right. So GRC stands for governance, risk, and compliance, and it is used by organizations to manage governance. All right. You can use GRC to manage risk management and also regulatory compliance. Now, the most important thing here is that GRC helps organizations to align IT to their business goals, right? For example, companies that want to accept credit card, right? They would review, okay, what is it we want to accomplish? Okay, maybe let's say an organization will say, hey, we want to accept credit card. What do we need to do? Then that's where GRC governance, risk, and compliance will come. And let's say, okay, one, all right, you want to accept credit card. We want to improve our revenue, but we want to do that by accepting credit cards. So the next step will be to make sure the organization is compliant with what we call a PCI DSS, right? So PCI DSS stands for Card Payment Industry Data Security Standard. Now, this applies to any organization that is accepting credit card, okay? So that is an example of how GRC can help organization to meet its goals. Now, within GRC, we have the pillars of GRC. One, governance, risk management, and compliance. Now, in governance aspect of the pillar of GRC, helps organizations to align the business objectives by providing or working on corporate policies. Now, it's just like you want to build something. How can you build something if people don't understand what is required of them, right? So the most important pillar within GRC is governance, because governance will now detect, one, how are we going to make sure the organization is meeting the organization's vision, mission, right, and objectives. Then once the organization, which is on the what we call GRC strategic level, that would be like the CISO or the CTO or the CEO, right, and the leadership, they will decide, okay, what is our goal? How do we want to achieve that? How do we measure success and progress? You understand? Then they will now go to the next step, which is, okay, now we know the goal, which is governance. How then the next pillar will be risk management. One, how do we identify risk? How do we assess risk? Then once we identify and assess the risk, how do we mitigate this risk? Because we want to identify what can impact our operations, right? Now, every company is in business to make money or to make profit, right? Now, if you can identify what will prevent the organization from being successful, that is very, very good. That's why in risk management, it will always be in demand, because we need people that understand risk management, either from IT, cybersecurity to business operations. We want to identify risk and mitigate the risk. Okay. Then compliance is very important, especially if you want, for example, on the PCI DSS side of things, you want to accept credit card, you need to make sure that you are, PCI compliant. Okay, we have other frameworks that for compliance purposes that we'll talk about, but the purpose of this video is to go over what is risk. Sorry, to go over what is GRC, the importance of GRC and why we should implement GRC. All right, so very, very important. Now, the consequences of not implementing a GRC framework is that one, right, GRC helps organizations to reduce risk. But if an organization does not have a GRC framework implemented, they have a significant risk of being fined, right? For example, I'm still going back to the PCI DSS. Now, if you're accepting credit card and you're not PCI compliant, if something should happen to your data and the customer data or the credit card data is exposed, right, then the company might be subject to fines. Okay. Now, another one will be of a GRC framework will also help you significantly reduce breaches. Okay, data breaches, operational inefficiencies, then also damage to reputation. So these are, little or few consequences of not implementing GRC. Very important. Now, what is the benefits? We talked about what is GRC. Now, what are the benefits? So the benefit is that one, when it comes to risk management, it will help you to one, proactively identify and address risk. Okay. Then two, when it comes to operational efficiency, GRC will help you to one, outline the processes. Then two, it will also help with accountability because this will be addressed in the governance part, right? Now, when it comes to compliance, one will make sure that your company or organization, they adhere to whether it's industry regulatory framework or compliance, which is like PCI DSS, okay? We also have what we call a cybersecurity framework, which is one, it can either be ISO 27001, which is an information security management system, okay? So we have ISO 27001, we also have NIST, okay? So we have NIST CSF, which is NIST cybersecurity framework. And also when it comes to regulatory compliance, of course, we have PCI DSS, we have cybersecurity, data privacy compliance as well. We have SOX and other compliance, okay? Now, the benefit of implementing GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance, is that it helps strengthen the organization's cybersecurity posture. Because when you're implementing, for example, I also go back to PCI, okay? There are requirements within PCI within requirement 1 to requirement 12. For example, requirement 7 talks about, it addresses access control, right? So within that access control, you can implement things within that PCI DSS requirement 7, and that will address a lot of access issues, okay? So that will strengthen the organization's cybersecurity posture across the organization, especially for systems that are used for collecting card payments, okay? All right, now, when implementing GRC, okay, so the question is, when should an organization or when should my company implement GRC? Okay, so one, GRC should one, when they should implement GRCs that when you're expanding into new markets, right? That requires regulatory requirements, especially like PCI DSS. Okay, you want to expand, or you want to, let's say, you have not be accepting credit cards before, but you want to increase your revenue, but in the new market, you want to make sure that your customers have the ability to accept credit card, then you have to abide by PCI DSS requirements. Then also when GRC can help organizations when they're experiencing rapid business growth, because you want to make sure that a company is structured properly. So from the governance right side of things to the risk management side of things, then also to the compliance, right? So how do we know that the company is compliant? Because a company can also have their own internal requirements, okay? So they can say, okay, hey, I'm building these internal controls because I want to make sure that my company or organization, this is how we measure success. This is how we measure progress. So you can have your own internal controls management, right? And that will help you to say, okay, hey, we're experiencing rapid business growth. What controls do we need to make sure we have in place? Then when another example would be when you're undergoing, let's say, a cloud adoption, right? So we have organizations moving from on-prem to the cloud. You need to use GRC, right, to make sure that one, all the controls are implemented correctly, right? So the migration to cloud is not an easy task. So we want to make sure that we have the governance in place. We have to understand the risk, right? Then we want to make sure that we have the controls, then test those controls to make sure they are compliant with either the company's goals or to a regulatory framework like PCI. It can be SOX, it can be ISO 27001, right? Then we should implement implement GRC when we're preparing for audits or when we see the organization going through an increased cybersecurity threat. Okay, so that's the reasons why we should implement GRC. Now, how does GRC improve business resilience? By embedding GRC into business processes, companies can, one, improve risk response. Okay, then two, they can streamline compliance efforts. Then also, when it comes to the overall business and cybersecurity resilience, the GRC helps organizations to do that. Okay. Now, resilience means the ability for organization to respond and recover. Okay. So when you have a good GRC implemented in the organization, the company will be able to recover or to respond either to risk, threats, or disruptions. Okay. So it's very important. Then, all right. So love to hear from you. Okay. So if you have questions about GRC and or what would love to share your experience in governance, risk, and compliance, please drop them in the comments. Love to discuss and learn together. Okay. If you find this video valuable, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. All right. You all have a good day.